To the left-hand side for Vieira, who'll play it through to Gabriel Jesus, who's in here for Arsenal. Gabriel Jesus to finish it off. Oh, what a way to do it! Gabriel Jesus seals the points for Arsenal. He's back, and he's back with a bang.
Into the penalty area it goes. Gabriel's header, and it's into the back of the net. Arsenal take an early lead through Gabriel.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the daily Arsenal podcast with me, Harry Symeou.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome back to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast with me, your host, Harry Symeou. Hope you're all good. Hope you're all well. Happy Sunday, the 14th of July. It is Euro 2024 final day, and I am here in Berlin, and I'm going to be at the game later on. I can't wait. What a game we have in prospect. We'll talk about the game in a little bit more detail a bit later on in the pod, but the question is it coming home? Is it going to be too much to do for this England side that have stuttered their way through this tournament so far and are, if we're being completely honest, facing the best side in these finals by quite some distance in the Spanish? We'll get into that a little bit later on. Is Bukayo Saka going to be the man? Is Declan Rice going to be the man from an Arsenal perspective? There's so much to get into, and we'll have a look ahead to that game, as I say, a little bit later on in the podcast. But what I can tell you is the atmosphere here in Berlin is incredible. I've been here for a few days. So I think I got here, was the England semi-final was on Wednesday. We came here on Thursday. So we arrived here in Berlin, I think on Thursday evening. And I have to say, when we got here, it was a little bit quiet. And I did think, I thought there'd be a few more fans here. But as the days have gone on, you've just seen more and more and more England fans and Spain fans arrive in their numbers. And if you go down by the Brandenburg Gate, that is all you will see. England fans. There's a huge fan zone around there as well. We spent last night in a place called Alexanderplatz, which was also full of football fans, buzzing there as well. Berlin's obviously a vast city, right? So the England fans aren't necessarily concentrated in one particular place, but there is an Irish bar, as there seems to be in every city in the world, multiple Irish bars, by the way, where a lot of fans have been gathering, and the atmosphere, from what I hear, has been really good. Not too much trouble. People often say that England fans, when they travel abroad, do cause problems, and they've got a bit of a bad rep. I haven't seen too much of that. Look, I've seen bits and pieces of people, crossing the line and stuff. But what this tournament has taught me, having been out here for, it will be nearly 3 weeks by the time I go home, which will be on Monday evening. But what this tournament has taught me is that don't tar sets of fans with one brush, because there are good and bad in every fan base. I've seen fan bases out here that I thought had pretty good reputations, and there were idiots representing them, and you're going to get that, right? So let's not make a massive deal out of that stuff, because most people that are out here are here to enjoy the football. Most people that are out here are here to take in this occasion, and what an occasion it's going to be. This trip has just been amazing. I've got to visit stadiums that were on my bucket list. I've been to Dortmund, I've been to Gelsenkirchen, I've been to Stuttgart, I've been to Dusseldorf. Today, I get to go to the Olympic Stadium here in Berlin, which is an iconic ground, and I can't wait. So I know I'm extremely fortunate and incredibly lucky to be able to attend this game today. What I will say is, I promise you, I'm not taking it for granted. Let me say a few hellos before we dive into today's content, because we've got a transfer on the cards. Arsenal very, very close to bringing somebody in the goalkeeping department. We'll get into that. And then, as I say, as promised, we'll focus a little bit on England's game against Spain here in Berlin tonight. Let's say a few hellos. Big hello to James, to Tom. We've got Mr. Lucas, who says, hello, Harry. Happy Sunday. It's coming home. I wouldn't count my chickens just yet, is all I'm going to say on that. We've got Paul, we've got Mafia Boss, we've got Aaron. What else have we got? Zed Tom says, it's National Day back home. Viva la France. Pity we couldn't make it to the final. That would have been perfect. France really underwhelming in this competition. And in the end, when they faced again, who I say have been the best team at these finals so far, it wasn't enough and they fell short. And I'm sure there'll be lots of criticism that they would have already received from sort of French outlets and the French general public. I don't want to get into politics because I don't like talking about politics on the Chronicles of Aguna. It's not the place for it, really. But I do wonder if what's been happening in France over the last couple of months or so, and the election that took place and the fear that had come over a lot of people with regards to the far right potentially getting into power. I do wonder if that was a bit of a distraction, because we saw some of the players come out and say things around it. We know that France in particular is a team that has a lot of players in it that come from migrant families, and there would have been a lot of people in that squad that maybe were feeling a little bit uneasy about what was going on. I'm not saying that is the reason that France didn't play very well. I couldn't possibly know that, but it does feel like that might have been some sort of factor. What else have we got in the chat? We've got Wandering Minstrel, we've got Gabrielle, we've got Derek, who says it's coming home if England turn up. Aaron Alexander says this is a kind of funny summer as we're signing lots of goalies. It feels like that, doesn't it, with Arsenal right now? We've got Paul, who clearly wants Spain to win. What else have we got? Kadir is with us, Derek as well. Okay, let's get into our first story of the day then, because Arsenal are seemingly very close to making a signing. So, according to David Ornstein, Arsenal have struck an agreement with Ajax to sign goalkeeper Tommy Setford, with the fee for the 18-year-old youth international set to be around 1 million euros plus add-ons. He's a highly rated prospect, expected to join on an initial 4-year contract to bolster Arsenal's ranks. Now, the goalkeeping department is one that we knew required work going into this summer, okay? And that's for a number of reasons. We knew that it was very, very likely Arsenal were going to trigger their purchase clause on David Raya, which they've now done. That's been announced. He is an Arsenal goalkeeper. He's no longer a Brentford goalkeeper. He is 100% an Arsenal player. We've been wondering for a while what that will mean for Aaron Ramsdale. Does he go or does he stay? We're going to have to wait and see how that plays out. From hearing sort of the way a lot of much better connected people than me are talking, it feels like there is a real possibility that he could go, but that is dependent on whether or not Arsenal get what they believe they're entitled to for the England international goalkeeper. People have said, well, if he hasn't left by now, then he's not leaving. Well, he's at the Euros, and I'm sure his focus is on that. So just because he hasn't gone yet doesn't mean that he won't between now and the end of the window. We made quite a big effort as a football club to keep a hold of Carl Hein, who was pretty much out the door. And it's understood that he's probably going to go out on loan, which means that, there's so many uncertainties in the goalkeeping department for Arsenal. What's certain is that David Raya is going to be the number one, I think. We've done that deal, and that's fine. Whether Ramsdale stays or goes, we don't really know yet. And with Carl Hein being tied down to that contract, but then being sent out on loan, it feels like Arsenal are trying to get him ready to maybe be the number two in a season's time. They obviously don't think he's there quite yet. Otherwise, they'd have kept him, I'm sure, particularly if they feel that Aaron Ramsdale's leaving. So there is a chance that we end up having to sign not just Tommy Setford, but another goalkeeper as well. We've been linked with Bentley. We've been linked with a Spanish goalkeeper as well, currently at Espanyol, who we talked about just the other day as well. So it feels like there's still more work to be done in this position, but we are getting close to signing the Ajax goalkeeper, Tommy Setford. He's an English goalkeeper, although he was born over in the Netherlands. He is 18 years old. He was born in Haarlem. He is a current England under-20 international. Hasn't made a cap yet for them, but he has played for England at various other levels. He's been at Ajax since July 2021. He's represented England at under 16s level, under 17s, under 18s, under 19s, yet to get a cap for the under 20s, but I'm sure that's not far away. And according to Transfermarkt, the probability of him joining Arsenal is currently at 60%. I think with David Ornstein's news this morning, that's probably risen and not quite yet updated. But look, do you want me to, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about what angle we come at this from on today's pod. And I thought about, potentially sitting down at some point and doing a scouting report on Tommy Setford, breaking him down. What is he good at? What is he bad at? And the truth is, guys, I know next to nothing about this kid. And even with a quick bit of research, and it's not a great deal of research that I've done this morning, but with a quick sort of search, I've not really been able to find too much on him. And so I think it will be disingenuous of me to sit here and pretend that I know loads about Tommy Setford, what he's going to bring to Arsenal. For Arsenal to go abroad and pick out a goalkeeper that is 18 years old and isn't playing regular first team football, it says that in their eyes, they believe that he is a really, really exciting prospect. Now, I appreciate it's not a huge risk spending 1 million euros plus add-ons on a goalkeeper. If he does go well and things do good, he could potentially end up, being worth 10 times, 20 times that in a not too distant future. So, it feels like a low risk, potentially high reward signing. But it's interesting to me that he's been identified, given that, he hasn't really been in the news all that much. I've heard the name before. I think he's got a brother as well, which is something that I've heard about in the past. But this wasn't one that I expected. This isn't one that I'm massively excited about for the reasons that I've stated. I don't know an awful lot about him. But equally, we have heard time and time again that Arsenal are going to look to improve in their recruitment of young players, that Arsenal do want to do better at that Arsenal do want to be picking up big talents at younger ages with the hope of, if they work out, great, you've got a long future with them. And that's great. But if they, if they fall slightly short of your level, you still feel like if you're picking them up for fees like this, you can probably move them on as well. So, and generate decent profit from that. So yeah, interesting signing. I haven't got that much to say about it. I'm sure there will be some experts who will come out over the coming days, and as this progresses and potentially moves forward, that might give us a little bit more information on him. But Tommy Setford looks like he's set for a move to Arsenal. I can't see a world in which he rejects the move. And for 1 million euros plus add-ons, Arsenal feel like this is a worthwhile bit of business. But the goalkeeping department still requires work. What I do find interesting about this is what his role is going to be. Because does he become look, he'll go and play for the under 21s, generally speaking. But is he seen as the number 3 now? You can be both of those things. You can be the number 3 at Arsenal and play for the under 21s, week in, week out, because if the number 2 is available, you're not going to make the bench, are you? Most of the time in sort of the first team games. So I was thinking about this earlier. Is he coming in as a number 3? Is he coming in as a youth prospect who's going to play loads of games for the academy? And actually, having thought about it for a little bit, I think the conclusion I've come to is that he can kind of be both at the same time. And I think that's probably the way that Arsenal will look at it. Let's move on. Another story I did want to touch on that broke yesterday, which isn't directly to do with the Arsenal, but probably has a knock-on effect for some people who were very, very keen on Arsenal signing this particular player, is the news that Aston Villa are in the process of finalising an agreement with Everton to sign Amadou Onana. The deal is said to be worth £50 million. Personal terms are in place on a long-term contract. The 22-year-old midfielder has been targeted by Unai Emery for a while and is keen to play for the Spaniard and Aston Villa. Obviously, Aston Villa have that pull and that appeal of Champions League football at the moment, which certainly helps, doesn't it, when you're going into the transfer market and trying to lure players to your football club. And the reason I bring this up is because I know a lot of Arsenal fans have been really big and keen on the idea of signing Amadou Onana. We did a scouting report on him a little while ago, which you can find on the channel. If you just type it in, scouting report, Amadou Onana. You can find it on the audio feed as well if you're an audio listener. I've never really been totally convinced about Amadou Onana's overall game. And I did watch him in the flesh here in Germany as well when he played for Belgium against France. It was just the one game I saw live. But I have seen him on various occasions playing for Everton in the Premier League, both on television but also live as well when I've been covering London clubs facing Everton. And I've just never been totally convinced. So is there a part of me that when I saw this went, oh, yeah, there was, because he's a player that's been really heavily linked with us. But there's Also, no real regret on my side. I don't look at this and think, man, we've missed a trick here. I think he's a decent midfield player, but I think that when we're without Thomas Partey, we always talk about ball progression and our inability to do that. And as a result of that, we saw Jorginho, I think, play a lot more football than he probably expected to last season. If we're going to bring in that player that is going to sit deep, because I think we can all agree that Mikel Arteta feels that Declan Rice is more of an these days. Um, I do, I do think that if he was going to come in, Amadou Onana, it wouldn't really tick that solve that problem that we have. Do you know what I mean? It's not really. Um, he's not really the perfect fit, if that makes sense. So would I have considered him as a target? Yeah, I think I would have, and I think a lot of other people would have too. But was I massively big on this at any point? No, I wasn't. So the fact that he's going to Aston Villa is fine. I certainly wouldn't have fancied paying 50 million for him. And obviously Villa are able and willing to do that. So, they need to replace Douglas Luiz as well. And, they've got a bit of money as a result of that. They've done some, I don't know what to say, how to describe them. Some, shall we say, questionable deals when it comes to getting around the PSR stuff, as have a lot of other clubs, by the way. I'm not picking on Aston Villa specifically, but they're obviously in a position to do this. And I think it's one that will happen. So it means that those that wanted to see him join Arsenal will have to turn their attentions elsewhere. I certainly think we do need a midfielder, and that will, of course, happen at some point. Right, let's move on then. Let's focus on today's Euro 2024 final. Wow, England versus Spain. Is it coming home, guys? We're going to find out. Who will win Euro 2024? As I said at the top of the show, it is an England side that is stacked with talent, but if we're being completely honest, hasn't really performed at these European championships to the level that we know those players are capable of, against who I would say are clearly the best team at this competition, or have been at least up until this point. People will say that Spain are heavy favourites because of what I've just mentioned, because of the fact that they've been in form from the very beginning. Sometimes you see teams at major tournaments turn up and look really convincing in the group stages and then fall away. When it comes to Spain, that hasn't really happened. They've passed every test that they've been faced with flying colours. That's the truth of it. They've been fantastic. I still look at that Spain team, though, and think it has weaknesses. I still think defensively they're not amazing. I still think that in Alvaro Morata, they have someone that brings loads to their overall game and connects things really well and brings people into it. But he isn't the most potent, cold-blooded finisher out there. And I think throughout his career, we've seen that. I do think he's an underrated player, though, in terms of how he's viewed in England, particularly. I think he came to Chelsea, didn't have a great spell, and people sort of proceeded to then write him off when actually, that was probably a little bit harsh, because he's then gone on to do really good things again in his career post his stint in England. Lamine Yamal and Nico Williams are the two players that you look at and think match winners, game deciders. Dani Olmo has been fantastic since coming into the side as well. He definitely is a match winner. He has that potential. He has that ability. Fabian Ruiz in midfield, who we've been linked with in the past, has been really, really strong for this Spanish side. He's looked much better than he has in recent times playing club football for Paris Saint-Germain. Rodri is Rodri in the midfield. He's the best midfield player in the world. I've said that for quite some time. And I think that England, have their work cut out dealing with him. I think England's midfield's got better as the tournament's gone on. I think Kobe Mainu complements Declan Rice really well. I think the two of them look much more secure than it did when it was Rice and Trent or Rice and Gallagher or whatever. So, yeah, I think that Spain have a lot going for them. Carvajal will return. Cucurella's had a very, very good tournament, although I wouldn't fancy him. Keep quiet for an entire game. Laporte at the back, strong. Lenormand, if he plays, I'm not really sure about him, to be honest. Unai Simon is a goalkeeper that I never really trust. So there are really strong points to this Spanish team, but there are also really weak points. And England are not playing very well, generally speaking, barring the first half an hour against the Netherlands. But they seem to be able to find ways of getting over the line. And they've got a lot of talented players, a lot of really good individuals, which means that they are in a place where, you know, as long as they hang in games and stick in games and don't do silly things, they'll always have a chance, because if it's not Bellingham, it's Saka. And if it's not Saka, it could be Kane. And if it's not Kane, as we saw the other night, it could be Ollie Watkins off the bench. Do I rate England's chances of winning these European Championships higher than their chances of winning Euro 2020 or 2021 as it went on to be? No, because I think this Spain side are better than that Italian side. Plus, that final was played on home soil. And, you know, that obviously worked to England's advantage. Here, they're away from home. This is the first major final they've ever made on foreign soil. Berlin is full of England fans at the moment. So we're going to see, of course, a big England contingent. I'm sure there'll be plenty of Spanish fans inside the stadium as well. There's lots of them here. From speaking to some Spanish fans on the ground, it seems like a lot more of them have come maybe without tickets. And that might just be the people that I've spoken to, but there's quite a few that have come without tickets. I have met England fans that are without tickets as well, but I feel like there's a greater proportion of Spanish fans that have made the journey that don't have the tickets. Who's outnumbering who? I'd say the England fans are outnumbering the Spanish fans by quite some distance at the moment, similar to the way that the Dutch seem to outnumber the English in Dortmund on Wednesday night. But I think this is going to be a fascinating game. I think the fact that England won't have as much of the ball, the fact that there won't be that onus on England to always be aggressive in their play because of how good Spain are and what they're capable of, probably actually suits England to a point, because people are probably going to be less likely to sit there and go, well, why haven't we got the ball? Well, why aren't we doing things? Why aren't we forcing the issue? Because I think there's a lot more respect for the opposition here than we've seen before. Sadiq says, will they behave, or will we see similar scenes like the last final? Look, I've not been to every game. I think this will be my 7th game at these Euros today. From what I can see, generally people have been really well behaved. I think the fact that the German police are certainly a lot more no nonsense than the English police, basically, helps us in terms of maintaining that discipline. But yeah, it's interesting. Like, in terms of the behavior thing, I haven't seen anything terrible since I've been out here. I've seen the odd flashpoint, I've seen the odd idiot, but I've seen that from different nations. So I don't want to sit here and say, oh, you know, it's him, it's them and it's not them, or this or that or whatever. You know, the behavior thing, I hope that we don't see what we saw at Wembley. I think there's a much better process in place around the stadiums here, and maybe there's a lesson learned from the Euros. And what I mean by that is, you can't actually get near the stadium here unless you have a ticket. So the entrances to the surrounding area of the stadium are a lot further out. And so you need to get through those to get near the stadium, which limits the chances and the possibilities of people rushing through like they did at Wembley, where obviously the checkpoint, if you like, was just at the bottom of the steps. So yeah, at the end of Wembley Way, at the bottom of the steps. So it's really different here. And I think that'll work well. I think the Olympic Stadium is massive as well. It's in a bit of a more isolated location, which probably makes it more difficult for people to get in as well. So I don't expect to see that kind of shit. But in terms of the football, I think it's going to be a really, really fascinating game. 2 very different styles, 2 very different philosophies. One team that I think have a much higher technical level against a team that I think have a much higher physical level, and which one of those is going to come out on top. The thing I've been really impressed with when it comes to Spain is how in unison they all seem to be in the way that they play football. And I've said this before, I think that comes from growing up playing football using the guidelines of a similar philosophy. And, you know, that means that when you then make that transition from club football to international football, you're not starting from a blank canvas. You kind of know what's going to be expected of you, even if you're not playing exactly that at club level. You've been brought up playing that way. So it's less of a drastic change and something that you're able to adapt to far easier. My prediction for today's game, I think England are going to win it, guys. I really do. I'm not an England fan, as you guys know. not for any real reason other than I find it quite difficult to turn it on in terms of love for players that on a week-to-week basis I see as rivals. I find that quite tough, quite difficult. And yeah, I've just never really felt that connection with England. I've never really been enamored with the way that they play or the style or anything like that. And so I found it more difficult probably than other people who have grown up in the UK to feel that affiliation. Look, if they win it, great. There'll be a big party and lots of people that I know will enjoy it and will love it and it'll be great. But if they don't, am I going to sit there crying? Am I going to be gutted? Not really, to be honest with you. I just want to see a great game of football and the best team win. And so far, the best team have been Spain. But this is the beauty of cup football. You get to a tournament, you can scrape your way through. And if you get to a final, then you only need to be the better team on that day. In fact, you don't even need to be the better team on that day. You only need to take your chances. You only need to stay concentrated. You only need maybe the rub of the green. So look, my prediction is a narrow England victory here. But it could really go either way. And that's why I think this is such a fascinating game. Like, I think England were much bigger favourites against Italy at home than they are today. But I still think that England probably just about edge it because maybe they have greater tournament experience within these ranks. We talk about the Spanish side. Nico Williams, one of the stars, very young, largely inexperienced footballer in comparison to some of the other 21, 22-year-olds that England have, for example. Lamine Yamal, I think he's turned 17 now. What a moment for him. There are some experienced campaigners and real winners in that Spain team too. But my prediction is that England win this narrowly. But we'll have to wait and see what happens. And we'll bring you some reaction to that game, of course, at some point tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'll be bringing you that reaction to the final. Hopefully we'll be able to look at it through an Arsenal angle if one of our boys delivers. And then we will take a short pause because I'm going to be traveling back to London and I'll be back to the normal schedule on Tuesday. Now, I have missed a few episodes while I've been out here, and that's been through no fault of my own. Crap internet, bad trains, all the rest of it. But I'm actually quite proud, actually, that I've been out here for nearly 3 weeks, and I think we've only missed 3 days in total in terms of producing podcasts. And for 2 of them, I was horribly sick. So yeah, anyway, we'll see. Thank you for joining me as always. If you haven't done so already, guys, please leave a like on the video. It really does help. And subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're brand new. If you're listening on audio, leave us a review as well. That helps too. On YouTube, I can see there are a few hundred of you watching us. Please leave a like. That really does help, as I say. And I will see you all on the next one. And we'll have a Euro 2024 final to react to. Any questions, any thoughts, get them in the comment section and we'll pick them up on tomorrow's episode. Until then, take care of yourselves and have a great Sunday. Is it coming home? We will find out pretty soon, won't we?